We did it, friends. She's officially in the game. Mrs. Explosion Pew Pew Firework Shooting Firework Lady aka Yoimiya aka Mother of the Fireworks is in the game and here to stay. Because of your greatest hopes or despite your greatest fears, you've pulled Yoimiya, Genshin's brand new Pyro Bow user who happens to be a 5-star, and now you must build her. This is a good and bad thing because for one, and I might be a bit biased, but Yoimiya is extremely fun to play because of how weird her kit actually is. To start this all off, let's talk about the bare basics of how Yoimiya is meant to be played, because it actually resembles a firework. No, like actually. Unlike the vast majority of main DPS characters in Genshin, Yoimiya heavily relies on your ability to manage your team's energy and make smart rotations, so by default, squeezing out her maximum potential is a little tougher than it is with most characters, but it's absolutely rewarding. If you can manage to keep your team's burst up as often as possible so that they can assist Yoimiya's infused normal attacks while she's on the field, you'll notice her impact on the battlefield is significantly higher than if you were to just toss her out there and press E. And on the flip side of that coin, you need to make sure that when Yoimiya's E expires, you can press her Q and send her off the field for a while, letting the rest of your team recharge their energy while proccing her Aura's Blaze tag for maximum damage uptime. It is true that Yoimiya's infused attacks deal absolutely mind-boggling damage at even more mind-boggling speed, but once her infusion expires, she's burnt out for 8 seconds. So to summarize all that, pick a team that supports Yoimiya's attacks, learn an effective rotation for the team, then rinse and repeat until you 36-star the Spiral Abyss. But not this one, because it's literally impossible. With that all said, Yoimiya's wildly unique kit comes with a surprisingly large amount of viable builds and team comps to help her reach her flashiest moments. Starting with artifact sets, the most popular choice among players will likely be the 4-piece Crimson Witch set, and I am here to tell you, do not use a 4-piece Crimson Witch on Yoimiya. The 4-piece passive enhances a character's reaction damage essentially, and Yoimiya has a weird caveat in which she's actually really bad at consistently proccing these reactions. So the vast majority of those big numbers you see from her in gameplay clips, namely the ones in this video, don't actually come from reaction multipliers, but rather her own raw damage output. Investing in a Crimson Witch 4-piece won't be nearly as rewarding as other set combinations in the game, such as a 2-piece Crimson, 2-piece Shimenawa/Gladiator. This set combination is definitely the most flexible and easy to build for Yoimiya because it gives her a 15% pyro damage boost and an 18% attack damage boost, allowing you to consistently output a nice chunk of extra damage in just about any battle scenario. If you're relatively new to the game or more casual and just like mindlessly shooting, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, this set is probably your best bet with Yoimiya as it eases some of the difficulty in her playstyle and allows you to pair her with whoever you want, wherever you want. Granted, with that combination you won't be getting nearly as much damage output as you will with my next few options, but still, it's a nice set combo. An easy one too. And I say that because a stronger version of her pyro focus sets is the 4-piece Lava Walker set for that sweet 35% damage increase against enemies affected by pyro. Statistically, sets like the Lava Walker and Thunder Soother can output much more damage than their flexible counterparts, the Crimson Witch and Thundering Fury, respectively, but it really restricts you to a specific playstyle with the characters you're using them for. In Yoimiya's case, it restricts you to playing in teams that don't quickly proc and erase her pyro application, which for pyro is basically every reaction. You want to have constant teeny pyro icon uptime on enemy health bars because your firework lady will deal much more damage overall the more she's attacking those enemies. Now, considering Yoimiya doesn't rely too heavily on reactions anyways, it's a bit easier for her to pull off this 35% damage increase frequently without sacrificing her own flexibility as a character, so the Lava Walker is a set that I'd consider to be one of her best, and it's only a little more difficult/intricate to use than the aforementioned set. Another set, my personal favorite, that has garnered a bit of controversy for its drawbacks is the 4-piece Shimenawa's Reminiscence set. The 4-piece passive allows you a 50% attack damage boost for 10 seconds when you use your elemental skill, at the cost of 15 energy, and that's the problem. As I said earlier, energy management is extremely important with Yoimiya teams, and this set makes it much more difficult to manage your energy. Because of this, I really don't recommend running Yoimiya with this set without an Electro Resonance team and/or a Pyro battery, because you'll have a very difficult time charging her burst for when she's off the field, and as I said, she has to be off the field for her rotations. Many people are coming to the conclusion that this set is bad on her and that it isn't her best in slot, and to be fair, I can see why they say it, but I'm respectfully informing you that I think it is her best in slot. It just also happens to make her extremely difficult to play. This set significantly increases her potential at the cost of ease of use, so if you really want to use this set for a powerful Yoimiya, you have to bring the right team and you have to practice the right rotations. Moving on to weapons, and the very first one I want to discuss is the new craftable Hamayumi bow, aka that one bow that Yoimiya held in like all of her promotional videos. If you're running a more flexible set on Yoimiya like the Lava Walkers or the 2-piece Crimson 2-piece Gladiators, this bow is actually really nice because your burst will be up quite frequently and you can save it for rotation, granting yourself the double attack damage boost from the bow's passive. If you're running Shimenawa's, however, do not use this bow. I know it was all over her promotional vids. I know. But the issue is, with a proper rotation using the Shimenawa set, your burst will almost never be up until right before you need to swap Yoimiya out, rendering the doubled attack boost passive almost completely useless. That is why, for those of you using Shimenawas, and even those of you who aren't, I recommend Rust. Rust is a 4-star bow that you can obtain from any banner, so it's likely if you've been playing Genshin for a while, you probably have at least 1 or 2 stashed away. Rust, like Hamayumi, scales with attack percent, making it a good pick for any bow DPS character, but unlike Hamayumi, Rust comes with a flat-out damage increase for a passive at the cost of a small amount of charged attack damage. At Refinement 5, this bonus is an 80% attack boost. This bow is very simple and yet very powerful on Yoimiya, and the 10% charged attack decrease doesn't matter at all, cause no one's using her charged attacks for damage anyways, it's just for fireworks. And then obviously her best in slot is the Thundering Pulse, given its multiple massive attack damage boosts on top of a high base damage and a high crit damage scaling substat. With this bow equipped, you can pretty much run any Yoimiya build with any Yoimiya team and you can't go wrong. It's a strong pick that makes her a pew-pew machine, and that's kind of a given. However, I am not one to encourage people to pull on the weapon banner because of its dual reputation as a Dream Crusher and a wallet smasher. You don't need this weapon to build a strong Yoimiya. If you don't have the 3 best in slot bows I just mentioned though, luckily there's a couple of other options that work really nice as well. The Amos bow for its attack damage boost passive and scaling attack damage substat, but be warned, due to Yoimiya's rather short range, you can't really make full use of the passive. The Skyward Harp for its nice crit damage bonus and crit rate substat, which allows you, given Yoimiya's innate crit rate scaling, to focus very little on crit rate and very much on crit damage. Also, it has a cool little AoE attack passive, which is okay enough. The Blackcliff Warbow and the Royal Bow are also not terrible choices if you're really out of options. To clarify though, the reason the Royal Bow doesn't completely suck on Yoimiya is because her attacks are actually so fast that they can keep that crit rate passive at a decent average. And finally, if you don't have a suitable 5-star or 4-star bow, you can use the Slingshot for its crit rate scaling and passive that actually has decent synergy with Yoimiya's lack of range. To reiterate my earlier points about her best in slot weapons, however, she does technically have 3. I'd say judging by power, flexibility, and ease of use, they rank in strength from Thundering Pulse first, Rust second, and then Hamayumi third. Then all those other bows I mentioned are tied for 4th, because I don't want to rate them all. So then we are left with the single-handedly most important thing to think about when building Yoimiya, her team. It's obvious enough to say that a good team build goes a long way, but in Yoimiya's case, unfortunately, the team is everything, and if you're not pairing her with capable sub-DPS and utility characters that can help her generate energy and rotate effectively, you will absolutely notice her weakness and lack of impact on the field. And that is exactly why I consider a team with Beidou, Fischl, and Bennett to be one of her absolute strongest. I call it the Explosion. There's probably better names for it, but we're gonna go with the Explosion. Quick note on the Overloaded reaction, since many people hate it. The majority of enemies that suffer big knockback from Overloaded will get one shot long before they leave your range as Yoimiya, and tougher enemies take little to no knockback anyways, so you're just dealing extra damage with no drawbacks. This team is the most optimal team for those of you hoping to bring Yoimiya up to a meta gameplay standard because it works wonders with the Shimenawa set, the set that I referred to earlier as her most difficult yet rewarding to use. This is because there's a lot of energy regeneration happening given the Electro Resonance passive on top of the Pyro battery. As such, you can frequently make rotations and save your team's bursts to buff Yoimiya as she returns to the field when her skill is up again. When she gets to the field, if all went well, she'll have an attack boost and massive heals from Bennett, a large amount of extra electro damage from Fischl and Oz, and a ton of potential AoE damage from Beidou's burst, all happening while Yoimiya dishes out her already insane normal attack damage. I don't recommend straying from this exact team though, given that these 3 characters work together in very intricate ways to make this team as a whole work. If you were to swap Beidou or Fischl out for Lisa, you're missing out on massive electro sub DPS potential, and if you swap Bennett out for another battery such as Xiangling, you lose your team's only source of healing. You could swap Bennett for Xinyan given her shielding though, I just really recommend Bennett. This team isn't as effective against fewer enemies though, for example if you're clearing weekly bosses or the abyss floors in which the chambers have mostly boss enemies. For teams in which you're up against 3 or fewer enemies, I'd say your best option is Yoimiya, Bennett, Kazuha, and Zhongli. It's worth noting that this team runs extremely well with the Lava Walker set. Now realistically, many people don't have Kazuha and Zhongli, so you can swap Kazuha for Sucrose to get similar usage out of her kit with crowd control and elemental resistance shred. As for Zhongli, you can swap him for just about any shield user you want. The point of his role is to keep you from being disrupted while face planting the enemy inside of Bennett's burst. With this team, you'll initiate a fight with Bennett's skill or his burst to apply pyro to the enemy. Then you'll swirl that pyro with your Anemo character and a 4-piece Viridescent set so that the enemy's pyro resistance is shredded by 40%. Then make sure your shield is up before swapping to Yoimiya and decimating them with her infused attacks while their resistance is shredded. This is a very situational team, but it's probably the one you'll see the most crazy damage on with Yoimiya, and crazy damage is good, but just note that there aren't really effective rotations for this team. So I don't really recommend this for any long fight content like the Spiral Abyss, but it is an amazing team for quick boss farming because of its quick and massive damage potential. Those are the two strongest Yoimiya teams in my opinion, both serving wildly different purposes, but there are other teams you can use with Yoimiya, whatever your reason for doing so. Teams like a triple pyro where you run, for example, Yoimiya, Bennett, Xiangling, and Kazuha for insane pyro defense shred and really nice energy recharge. Teams like a fireworks comp where you run Yoimiya, Beidou, Xingqiu, and Kazuha to crowd control enemies together and then absolutely blast them with Beidou and Xingqiu's bursts atop Yoimiya's attacks. The main overall theme with Yoimiya teams is you need to pick characters that help create consistent rotations and multiply Yoimiya's pyro damage, whether by resistance shredding or attack boosting. Overall, I honestly believe Yoimiya is in a good spot where she's at, as surprising as that sounds. I see a lot of people calling her underwhelming and bad, and I understand why that's the general conclusion, but I think it has a lot to do with how weird her builds and teams are compared to what we're used to from pyro characters. And that's a good thing. Genshin didn't just copy and paste when they made this 500th pyro DPS, they actually gave her weird new ways of becoming her own pyro character with her own niches. It's because of that reason and the fact that she's not necessarily easy to play that I think most players assume she's just bad. Now, granted, she's clearly not on the same level as say Ayaka or Hotao or Ganyu or Xiao, but she's definitely successfully created her own niche gameplay style that still works despite the Genshin community's greatest hope that she'd remain overshadowed by Amp. If this guide helped you and you want more content like this, feel free to subscribe and/or join my Discord server with the link below.